The first thing you should do before starting a project is to make sure that you have the most recent version of the asphalt paving workbook. And this is not on the dot.nd.gov site. This is only through the Minot portal. So you'll go to the Minot homepage, and then at the top there's divisions and districts. And then in the drop-down menu, you'll find materials and research. And then this is a page that'll pop up from that. The current version of the paving workbook right now is September of 2023. But I was informed that the newest version will be available on May 1st. And then underneath that is the paving workbook instructions. And the instructions are really comprehensive. So if you have any issues with a paving workbook, you'll probably find the answers that you're looking for in there. But before the project, make sure that both you and the QC have the most recent version of the paving workbook. And I should also mention that since it's not on the public DOT website, if you're not a DOT employee, if you're a consultant, I believe you can contact the material coordinator in your district to get the most recent version. So make sure you have that. So the first page, when you open it for the first time, this is the blank summary sheet. You'll be asked a couple questions. The first time you open it up, it'll ask if you want to make it a trusted document. And at the top, it'll ask if it'll either say enable content or enable macros. You'll want to click yes on both of those, and that'll activate the quick links at the top, which is a much better way of navigating the workbook than scrolling through each tab at the bottom of the screen. So on the front page, you have your aggregate properties, the job mix formula, and then just general data. And then at the bottom, you have some helpful links such as the paving workbook instructions that I mentioned earlier, some completed examples, and then the QA responsibility list. And then underneath that is the most recent version of the field sampling and testing manual, as well as the CARS manual. And underneath that, you'll find the contact information for Sharon Taylor and Lauren Lee. Lauren wrote the book and Sharon manages it, so they're both excellent resources. But like I said before, you'll probably find any answers to any questions that you have in the instructions. This is a completed summary sheet. At least each day I don't have the time and start and whatnot, but I think Josh is going to go over into more detail about transferring information over from the mix design onto the summary sheet. But I should make it clear that you want to make sure that you have all the correct information in both the aggregate properties and the job mix formula at the top, because that information is referenced throughout the book. Double check and triple check to make sure you have the correct information for that. And then I'll also fill in all the project data that's not going to change from day to day. So like the project information, the oil, the plant, and then the testers. And then what I'll do is I'll save that as the master paving workbook. And then each day I'll just copy that over into the daily paving workbook folder. And that just ensures that you don't have to fill in that information every day. So if you have it correct in the master workbook, it'll be correct in your day-to-day. And then if anything does change, just make sure that you're updating it consistently. So I have the master workbook in the folder directory above the daily paving workbooks, and then I'll copy those from day to day. In this case, I had separate folders for each day. I want to mention that you don't actually have to do that as long as you follow the proper naming convention. And this is called out in the instructions as well. But you should be calling them QA lot whatever and then QC lot whatever. And in this one, it was lot 8 and then the date. And it worked as long as we had them separated by the folder. But the reason you want to do that is when you're importing the QC lots into your workbook, you're not specifying the file, you're specifying the folder that the QC lot file is in. So make sure you know the naming conventions of them and check in the workbook instructions to make sure that that's correct. But I believe this is how it should be. So the first page I'm going to go over is the daily report. And this one is a sheet the contractor will probably want to see each day. So make sure you have the correct information in here, like the station's paved. Up here, this is referencing the cutoff report. Down here is referencing the gradation sheets. And then you have your core data right here. And then at the bottom right is the density pay factor. Try to be as detailed as you can when you're filling out the remarks. So I have the math included on how I calculated what their pay bonus was for the day. So on this project, I was fortunate enough that the cross sections of the roadway were consistent all the way through the project. So what I did was at the beginning, before the paving project started, I calculated the cross-sectional area of the driving lane, the shoulders, the sloughs, and then I determined that 17.2% of mix used on mainline paving would go to the shoulders and the sloughs. So on this day, make sure that you're in communication with your field inspectors. So we had 343.34 tons used on approaches. Just make sure that you know what mix is going where, because this is ordinary compaction, shoulders and sloughs is ordinary compaction. So there was 343 tons used on approaches. So I took that off of the pay quantity HMA and ended up with 4,217.4 tons that were sent to the mainline paver. And then I multiplied that by the 17.2% to figure out that 725.39 tons were from mainline were used on the shoulders and approaches. And I have the math clear down here so that the contractor can see where these numbers come from. So it ended up 1,068.73 tons were used for shoulders, sloughs, and approaches. So that ends up being what the ordinary compaction is for the day, and there's no pay incentive for that. So it automatically calculates out what was used on mainline to come up with their pay adjustment for the mainline and longitudinal joint compaction. And then this is the totalizer. It's fairly self-explanatory, but you'll be doing it regularly throughout the day, so I'll go over it a little bit. But you'll start, I go to like Google or something and get random numbers, just say random number from 1 to 100. And then in this case, I had 26, 78, 52. And then that calculates the daily tonnage for when the QC tests will take place. So in this case, it's just taking 0.26 times 1,500 to get 390, and then 1,500 plus 0.78 times 1,500 to get this number, 0.52 times 1,500 plus 3,000 to get 3,780. So it does that for you. If your project has e-ticketing, it makes it pretty easy to monitor how many tons are being put out throughout the day. And on this project, we didn't have that. So if you don't, just keep in contact with the plant operator, check in with a button shack once in a while and see how they're doing for tonnage. But usually QC is pretty good about keeping up to date on all that. So I do have an example here. So with each test, you'll want to go up into the button shack and ask them to bring up the totalizer screen, or just daily tonnages for, you have your tonnage for virgin aggregate, wrap, and then this is the easy blend system, so it gives you tonnage of asphalt cement. Sometimes you'll see it in gallons, in which case you'll need the unit weight of the oil to be able to calculate it from gallons into tons. And if you have that, it's easy enough to calculate between the two. Since it's given in tons, it'll just give you this number right away. If they give it to you in gallons, I don't know if this will auto-populate, because you'll have to have the manifests in so that you know what the specific gravity of the oil is before it can calculate from gallons into tons and vice versa. So you'll do this at each test, and then you'll do it one more time at the end of the day when the plant shuts off, and then it'll give you your tons of, or your percent of asphalt binder that was used throughout the day. And that number will be referenced here on the cutoff report. So 4.27 tons right there. The manifests, you'll get those along with a cutoff report at the end of the day, or the morning after, either way. In North Dakota, a lot of our oil is coming from Canada. So you'll be getting the manifest more than likely in kilograms. And don't do what I did, which was hand calculate each manifest from kilograms into pounds. I found out kind of towards the end of this paving project that there's actually a drop down here. So you can automatically change it from pounds to kilograms and then type the manifest in as you see them, and it'll automatically calculate it in tons. So just eliminate that user error and make sure you know that there's a drop down here. It just makes everything significantly easier. Then along with that, you'll get the cutoff at the end of the day. If the plant is only producing mix for your project, then this number will be what's in the tank at the beginning of the next report. Let's just say, for instance, if the plant stops producing mix for your project at 2 p.m. and then they start hauling mix to another site, you'd want them to dip the tank before they start hauling mix to the other site. And then likewise, the next day, you would want what's in the tank, you want the cutoff for the plant the day before. So in other words, just be aware that this is what's in the tank before they start on your project. This is what's in the tank when they're done on your project. And then right here, if they're using oil, tack, or fog, that's included in these manifests. So if they're using the same oil, you'd put something here. In this case, the tack, fog were from a separate supplier. So they were coming out on separate manifests. So that's why you don't see anything here for this one. And then down here, when you get your haul sheets at the end of the day, you have your haul sheet total. So everything that was ticketed throughout the day goes in this box here. And then in the pay quantity, you're only subtracting out the road waste. So you subtract out the road waste from the haul sheets, and that's how you get your pay quantity. And then the waste over here is total waste. So anything that's ticketed or not ticketed goes in here. And this is what's calculating out how much oil was wasted for the day. So in this case, we had 10.5 tons of road waste. So that's taken out right here. And then 50.7 plus 10.5 taken out here. And you probably wonder why there's 50.7 tons of plant waste, which generally is a lot. But I believe what happened was a truck broke down on the way out to the site this day, which generally would be road waste if it's on a ticket that shows up on the haul sheets. But what they did, they brought the truck back to the plant, they wasted it, and then they eliminated the ticket from the haul sheets and gave it separate. So another way to think of this is plant waste is non-ticketed waste, road waste is ticketed. So just be mindful of what you're getting here on the haul sheets. This is the mixed data sheet. This is the QA mixed data sheet here. Not much to point out here, just make sure you have the correct information up here and your plug heights. If you don't have these in, it won't calculate your bulk or max specific gravities. So make sure you have those in. If you don't have any numbers down here, it's probably because you either don't have your plug heights in or you're missing a box up here for the test. Blend percentages, you have to make sure that you're keeping up with those consistently. Usually the QC is pretty good about keeping up with the blend percentages, but make sure you're checking in with the button check once in a while. If there were any blend changes throughout the day, make sure you have the right ones at the time of the test, because if your blend percentages are wrong, then your FAA will be off. Okay, I guess this note points that out also. I wasn't aware of that, but yeah, just make sure your blends are up to date. And then this is from the summary sheet. This isn't on the mixed data sheet, but I copied and pasted this over so you could see basically what this is reading is It's saying you have 21% fines at this specific gravity, 28% rock at this specific gravity, 8% dust at that, and so on and so forth. So it's referencing this from the summary sheet, and then it's referencing this, and then it'll be used in calculating the FAA also. So another reason you want to make sure you have all the correct information from the mix design, and that you're keeping up to date with your blend changes. And likewise on the mix data sheet for the QC, you want to make sure that they also have the up-to-date blend percentages. And these are actually what calculates the FAA for acceptance. So I think ours ended up calculating an FAA 42. Theirs was an FAA 43, which is still within tolerance. But yeah, just make sure this information's filled out. It's best if the QC fills in this information too, because it'll be guaranteed that it's correct, because they're doing it at the time of the test. So make sure that's filled in, plug heights are filled in, so that you get your bulk specific gravity and your max specific gravity to calculate, as well as the air voids. The air voids won't calculate unless you have all this information filled in. I think that's all on those sheets. So I'm ahead of time, so I'll open the workbook so I can go over these here. So let's see, I'll go to quality control mix data. So this information's already in, but let's just pretend this is a blank slate, and I'll go up here and I will import QC lots, and you won't see anything here, but I'll show you what this folder looks like. So this is daily paving workbook day 8. If I open that folder directly, this is what's actually in there. So I have the PDFs that I send off at the end of the day. I have my lot, and then I have the QC lot right here. So this is in here, but it's named QC lot 8. If you go to import QC lot, you're selecting the folder that it's in. I'll just select OK, give it a minute to think. And this is what pops up here. So this one, they didn't fill out these boxes up here. So you'll see the max theoretical density and the air voids don't auto calculate. So I'm going to pop some in here. And then there you have these populate here. So then on the, just to verify everything, I'll go over to the aggregate worksheets for the QA or for the QC. And then I'll see down here, I'm not getting any values here. So what's going on is on their workbook, they were naming their tests 1, 2, and 3. But when I brought them in here, it automatically changed these from 1 to 8-1 and 8-2. So if I go to back to the aggregate worksheets, it's looking in the wrong spot, basically. So I'll click this drop down, and then I'll make sure it's 8-1, and then I'll get the FAA right here. So that's how you import. And then to analyze the data, you can do QC QA summary to compare with QC, but we like to use the QC QA IA summary. And on this sheet, you can still see the QC and QA results. And then down here, if there was an IA test that day, you see the IA compared to the QC, and then the IA compared to the QA. Let's see. These aren't populating because QA didn't do physical properties that day. So that's what's going on there. Then if I go to, let's check the daily report. So everything seems okay. This changed. So to figure out what's going on here, let's that would be, if I go to mixed data. So it's not calculating these. So that's what's going on there. So I'm just going to pop these in again. So now that we have the max theoretical density, if I go over to the daily report, the density should have fixed itself, and it did. Just kind of understand how to troubleshoot things if things aren't working out. Now let's say we have all of our sheets done and everything's correct. Just click through everything, make sure everything's populated. And it looks like in this case it is. Spend more time doing that though, make sure everything's right. To export PDFs, there's a couple ways you can do it. Up here, there is an export PDFs button, and you can save them to, just put a new folder here. So I want to save all the PDFs into that folder right there. And that exports every page. So I'll drag this over. This is what pops up. I have the cutoff report on one page, and then everything else, all the other sheets are all on this one. But let's say the contractor only wants, just to make it easier, you can separate them out in Adobe. But if the contractor wants, let's say they want the summary sheet, daily report, cutoff, totalizer, their density pays, and yeah, let's say they want those. So I'll go up to File, Save as Adobe PDF. This pops up here, and then I can select. I can go through and I can click through the ones that I want. So I want the daily report, cutoff, totalizer, pay factors, and maybe the core sheets. So let's say they want these. You can just select through all of them, add them here, and these are the PDFs that are saving, and I'll click convert to PDF. And oh, I shouldn't have done that. I think I just saved it. Well, anyway, and then you can just save it as is, and that's the sheets that you'll send off to, you know, whoever wants them. So I think that's all that I have for right now.